So I'd like to introduce Ron. He's going to share cloud computing with us today.
Yes.
All right, I'll let you take over.
The concept of cloud computing has actually been around for a long time. Originally, when service providers wanted to provide applications to customers, the customer would call in over the phone through a modem and connect to a mainframe, and then they would do their computing. Well, in effect, that was cloud computing just like what we have today. The mix, or the difference that we've created, is now the connecting mechanism is the internet. So really all we've done is, it's like everything old is new again. All we've done is gone back to the original model, replaced the phone with the internet, and now we're doing cloud computing. So, and if you have questions as we go along, shout them out. That might help fill up the time. Whoops, we just pushed the wrong button. What a dork. My students laugh at me all the time. Okay, so what we're talking about is cloud computing. And the term cloud, let's get into that a little bit. Well, okay, well, let's have some opening humor. Okay, we're worried about thunderstorms. What happens? Or then and now. In my classes, this would be a valid excuse. They forgot to upload it to the cloud. And we have, in our instructional programs here, we have a cloud. Okay, we call it Canvas. Whether that's progress or not, I don't know. Okay, so what's a computer cloud? Well, in the simplest terms, it's storing and accessing software on a remote site, usually over the internet, and you're not doing it from your local computer. Your local computer really is not involved in the process except to display the continuing communication. Okay? Matter of fact, like Chromebooks and other tools like that don't have hard drives. That's because they don't need one. All the storage and all the programs that they're using are in the cloud. So all they have to be able to do is receive a display signal and put it on the screen, and then accept the keystrokes or the mouse clicks that the user enters or indicates, and that sends back to indicate what you want to do. The cloud is really just a metaphor for the internet. And back in the day, excuse me, I got ahead of myself there. When you store data on programs on your own hard drive, and you run it from your own hard drive, and I won't get real technical there, but when you run it on your own machine, that's a local computer as opposed to a cloud computing. So there's a different, those are the two extremes, local computing and cloud computing. Okay, that definition came from PCMag. So, why is it a cloud? Well, cloud's a metaphor, like I said. It was originally used to depict what was called the POTS. And that's the official technical term, Plano Telephone System. Okay. We have a better name for it today. We call it the Public Switch Telephone Network. But POTS was the acronym we used for a long, long time. Okay. And later we used it for networks that we would connect to because we didn't really know what the infrastructure was there. Okay, we didn't know what kind of computer they had, or we didn't know anything else. We just know we connected to them and did stuff. Okay, so it took on the cloud. We moved it forward from the telephone into computing.
So if you still have struggle shaping your cloud, really all it amounts to is services you can access, and you don't care how it's done. You really don't care. All you know is I get the service, I'm happy with it. Okay. Everything beyond the plug on the back of your computer, that's the cloud. Or the I don't care what's there pile. Okay. This is original, just some repetition there. Okay, are there different kinds of clouds? Of course there are. Oh, you meant computing clouds, okay. So there are private clouds. Private clouds exist within one organization. Now, as you think about it, you're going to start seeing similarities to categorize the services we have within the Spokane Community College District. But you'll find that, it's a whole bunch of them. Okay, so private cloud is an organization. The closest thing we have would be our intranet. Okay, that's about as close as we come to a private cloud. Okay. Public cloud, that's the internet. That's public. Anybody can access it. Now, sometimes you gotta do both to get what you need. You gotta go through that private cloud to get to the public cloud. And sometimes there's community stuff in the middle, okay, much like our local system here. We would be considered a hybrid cloud because we have elements of public, we have elements of private, we have elements of community, and all of that boils down to a hybrid cloud. There is no standard for hybrid because it's going to depend on each organization and what elements they use. So whether one company or one institution defines a hybrid cloud one way, it's probably not going to be duplicated much anywhere else. It's going to be unique to that organization. Okay, quit asking all those questions, okay? I just want to get through this. Okay, so the cloud's everywhere. Does that make sense? Because anywhere you got a computer and an internet connection, you can be on the cloud. Let's just stew on that one for a little bit. Okay. Anywhere there's an internet connected computer, you can get to the cloud. Now, it'll probably make more sense when we get to the examples. But what I'm trying to do is, and I hate this phrase, I said it earlier, and my wife laughed at me. So I'm going to demystify the cloud here. Yeah. Okay, cloud, what cloud? Okay, whoops, let's go back one. My little gizmo. Okay. Sign on and connect to an application or service on through a web browser. Okay, you're in the cloud. Okay, now do you do that ever? Well, you're in the cloud.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. It's almost standard operating procedure now, right? And there's a very good reason for it that we'll come back to. Okay, the cloud is incredibly powerful. The concept behind implementing cloud applications is that if I'm a growing organization and if I'm growing rapidly, the scalability, or means the ability to make it larger, in most organizations is two things: very difficult and very expensive. Well, in the education world, the difficult doesn't matter. okay? But the expensive does, okay? So what has to happen is that we needed to find another avenue to increase our capacity, our computing capacity. And one of the things that does that is cloud computing. Because I can take my data center, and I'm exaggerating to make a point here, but I can take my data center, completely gut it, and put a bunch of dumb terminals in there, or what I call thin clients, okay, and connect to services on the internet, or cloud services on the internet, okay? If I need more services, I just sign up for them. I just subscribe to them, okay? I don't have to go buy a bunch of new hardware. I don't have to hire extremely technical people. Okay? I can get by just making sure that the application I'm subscribing to, I don't get to buy anything anymore, but the application I'm subscribing to performs as I need it to. In other words, security and data and all those types of things. If it meets our needs, why do we need to bring it in-house? Well, there are some arguments for that, okay? Because what would be the single most important element of that arrangement? That's not rhetorical. Yeah, I'm waiting for an answer. What would be that, huh?
Storage.
Storage? No. I thought you said courage, and I was going to give you credit.
Control for your information?
What's that?
Control?
Control is in the ballpark, okay? Trust. Because you as a subscriber have to trust that cloud service provider, okay? And how do you build that trust? Well, there's lots of technical documents and whatnot. Boils down to what's called a service level agreement, okay? What are they promising to do, okay? And what are you expecting them to do? Okay, yeah.
I have a question. So I've heard, like, I know people use Google Drive and Google Docs a lot, but they're like, Google doesn't necessarily own that information, but has access to all your information. Like, that's part of that
They're
agreement.
what's called the steward.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have stewardship of your, and the reason they call it that is it fits it under a law. Okay, because they're providing stewardship. Same thing if you go rent a storage locker. Okay, and someone breaks into that. Well, the provider has to provide you with, to be made whole, whatever you say it's worth, okay? And they can't prove it's not, so it's time to cash in, right? But the same thing's true of service providers in the cloud, is that if their agreement says that they're gonna protect your data and meet what's called the CIA, okay, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, okay, if they meet those three standards in the TIAA law, then you're good. But if they fail on one of those, under the law, you can sue them. So, because how much is your data worth? This is a question that a lot of companies struggle with, because the most valuable asset any company has is its data. Because that's what you did, that's what you're gonna do, that's what you're doing, okay? The products, they're done, you know, cash in on them, but what the data is highly important to your business.
So Google doesn't mine that data that's in the drive?
It does, from the aspect of the family heirloom you put in the storage locker. Same level of stewardship. Okay, well, read their print. They're saying that if it's penetrated and your data is compromised, that's the word in the agreement, that they will go to arbitration with you. Now, that's mainly to determine value. Okay, but otherwise, they're providing standard protective measures, and their standard protective measures are pretty darn good. So, and I can get into the asynchronous electronic script and all, there's a whole lot of things that they're doing to make it safe. Okay, they back it up. Well, first of all, if you're in Google Drive, you don't have to, your data's just in Quincy for the entire world. Yeah, I don't know if you've been to the Gorge, that's where Quincy is, right? Okay, well, in Quincy, there are 8 200,000 square foot buildings that have nothing in them but computers. And it's operated by Siemens, who's a German company, but they are the cache, C-A-C-H-E, cache service for just about all the majors. And so that's what Quincy's buildings are. And the reason they're there, because they found an internet backbone line of huge capacity nobody was using. So they're in Quincy. All right, cloud applications also provide access to your documents and applications just about on any item, any device you can connect to the internet from. So you can cloud compute from your smartphone or your tablet or your game console. Nobody actually owns the cloud. Now, that's a little different than nobody owns the internet. Okay, because the FCC is trying to take that away, right? Well, they haven't yet, but no one owns the cloud because the cloud has got lots of little pocket ownerships, but there's no one overall owner. It's a bunch of, it's like a whole block of rental houses, one way to look at it, because, different owners own them, and different people can be in them. Okay, so it isn't owned by a single organization, it's a collective. And it's free unless it's not. Well, most of the services that we would utilize are free. And there's a lot of free services in the cloud. But there's a lot of pay-as-you-goes too, okay? We talked about Canvas earlier being a cloud. We pay for Canvas, okay? That's the service we pay for. Services you pay for, you get to raise your expectations a little bit higher. Okay? Free services, you're dancing to their song. Any cloud are free, but some require a fee, and as you pay more, you get better levels of service. Okay, now, you're probably not familiar with Amazon Web Services, AWS. Well, as you're surfing the web, watch the address bar, okay, and you'll see times when it'll say AWS dot whatever you're looking for. Well, what Amazon Web Services is a big storage capacity, so it's just storing things for lots of companies. So that if I were, what was in that one movie, Enormous State University, right? In a Rodney Dangerfield movie. Enormous State, okay. I don't have to own anything. I can use it in the cloud, see? And so I don't have to much worry about the services unless I need a little bit more security, then I'm gonna pay more. Or if I need a little more capacity, then I pay more. So most of it's metered to what's called scalability or elasticity. In other words, I can increase on the fly. If I need more disk space right now, I got it. The bill just went ka-ching too, right? So most of it is still free though. Now, most of these subscriptions, except for Microsoft, most of these subscriptions are monthly. You may pay quarterly or you may pay annually, but it's based on a monthly charge so that you have the ability to opt out when you don't need it anymore. Okay, or you can add it at any time. It's secure. In general, your stuff is more secure in the cloud than it is on your home computer. And the reason is you can't afford what they can. They have security measures that none of us would be willing to pay for on our home computer. Okay, like Trend Micro, you've probably heard of them as an antivirus. Okay, they also have a security package that they could install if you want for about $120,000. That uses impenetrable encryption algorithms. Okay, AES is the name. There's other services like that. McAfee has some. Norton has some. Okay, and there are big services that provide these security services and data protection. Okay. Let's say someone steals your computer. They got all your stuff. Okay. They steal your phone. They got all your stuff. Okay. Now you can have auto wipe on your phone. You can even have it on a computer. So that if someone stole your computer, let's say your home computer, and you have a code on your phone that you can enter and it'll erase the hard drive. Well, that punishes two people. The person who took it, so that actually it's not a punishment for them. They don't now have to do that themselves. Okay? But it punishes you. Your stuff's gone, even if they recover the computer. But the mindset is that if your computer is stolen, you're not getting it back. Not as it was anyway. Okay. But if your stuff is stored and backed up into the cloud, kind of hard to steal it now. First of all, they got to know where it is. Now, in the back of your mind, you're probably saying, yeah, right, I heard about Equifax. Well, Equifax isn't in the cloud business. They're in the data business, and they underestimated the security they needed. Cloud providers know they're in the security business, and that's their first line of defense. They have to be. Otherwise, you're not going to subscribe to their service. So security is their number one. In order to build that level of trust that they have to have between you and them, they have to provide security. And using encryption. Encryption, you know what that is, right? Yeah.
Just backing up to that, paying for security. I know Dropbox is a popular one amongst educators because it's free. And then, of course, you can pay for higher levels. Is the free version of Dropbox pretty secure?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's totally encrypted. Yeah. What you're paying for when you go up is space, not service. Yeah, you get all the same services. Yeah. I use it a lot because it's an easier way for me to move documents between myself and the editor and the publisher, you know. And so before we used to email them, you know, and then it got too big, so then we had to put them on a CD and mail that. Yeah, but yeah. So you're exactly right. And the encryption that they use, the same encryption is used by most of the cloud. I'd say 90% of them, service providers, and it's the same encryption that is used by the U.S. government. Okay. CIA, Army, Navy, Air Force, it's called AES. And briefly, I don't want to give you a total headache about encryption, but it takes a document and does a bunch of really weird math on it, okay, and gets it down to 512 bits. Well, there's 8 bits to a byte, or to a character. Okay, but so it's got this 512 message digest is what it's called. Okay, it's digested this huge document down into 512 electronic bits. Okay, now Go for it. You figure out what that represented. I mean, that document could have been 10 million bytes. So it's very complicated algorithms. And the AES, the one I'm talking about, has not been cracked. And 2 guys in Palo Alto are getting very wealthy. So 2 instructors at Stanford, actually, is what it is. Yeah. Okay, so what can you do in the cloud? Well, let's talk about how they get that stuff to you. There are 3 delivery models primarily, okay? But there are variations on them. Remember, we talked about cloud platforms a little while back, where we talked about public, private, community, and hybrid. But there are other types of services. So what we're talking about is what kind of service can you get? Well, the National Institutes of Science and Technology say software as a service. We'll call that SaaS, S-A-A-S. Okay, and I'm going to give you examples of each of these, okay? They also define infrastructure as a service. And we'll come back to that, along with platform as a service. All other products that you can buy on the cloud are variations of these 3. Okay? And there's one called XAAS, which means everything as a service. Okay? SaaS is a general term that is for any application you can access on the internet that is not running on your own computer. Okay, so software as a service. And cloud services to cloud service users in the public cloud. Now you can have SaaS in the private cloud, we do. Well, not anymore. They took our emails. Our email's now in the public cloud. Yeah. So, all right. So here's some examples of SaaS, software as a service. You probably recognize a few of them, right? Okay. Those are all. That isn't the whole list either. Okay. But that's the major list. And actually, it's in the order, except for Google, I pulled it out. But they're in the order of the number of subscribers they have, which I thought was really interesting that this was so far down the list. Yeah. I've never used it, but I understand a lot of people do. So, and Viber, a lot of people didn't even know what that was. That's a video. You can share videos with people, like online FaceTime type of thing, you know. So, but there are a lot more than this. WhatsApp is not real big in the US, it's huge the rest of the world, yeah. I've noticed in doing some reading that the Google suite, it's now being called, that has the maps, the apps, etc. in it, a lot of schools are adopting that as their standard because, first of all, it costs $0 as opposed to Microsoft, which costs zeros, but there's numbers in front of the zeros. So, okay, software as a service in general. These are education packages specifically, and you might recognize some of them, especially the 4th one down. But there's a lot of applications out there. Oh, I forgot. CTC Link is one of them. And its cloud's a little weird. Okay, yeah. But yeah, these are all educational cloud applications. And these are SaaS, software as a service. And all it has to do to qualify for that is you don't run the program on your computer, it's running on somebody else's computer, and you're just connecting to it. Okay?
Should the CTC be a mushroom cloud?
Oh, yeah, I should. I thought about that, but I thought tornado might be better. Because it really scrambles the data, you know. Yeah. Okay, platform as a service is, I can rent an environment. In other words, I can rent a computer and an operating system and all the supporting software I need to do program development or system development or engineering, whatever it is. I don't have to go buy the equipment, I just rent it. I just subscribe to it. And I say, I need this, and that's what I get. And I pay a monthly fee for that. So when I'm done with my project, gone. Okay. So I don't, but back in the day, and you know you're old if you say back in the day, right? Okay. So back in the day, if a company wanted to develop its own in-house applications, and just about everybody did, okay, you had to go buy all that stuff. And then when your project was done, you had to find a way to use it, because otherwise it was just sitting there. So a lot of people got jobs, bless their hearts, because the company had to do something with the stuff they invested. Okay, they couldn't just offload it and say, hey, forget that, I'm just going to rent it when I need it, or I'll access it when I need it. Especially since platform service providers will customize it to my needs. Okay, now I don't even have to store the data there. I can store data back in my own computer. One of the applications that is kind of a bridge between SaaS and PaaS is Office 365. Okay, because it's a SaaS, we're accessing applications, okay, but we're also in a computing environment that lets us store our stuff back on our computer. The other was infrastructure as a service. And infrastructure, we used to call this co-location. And what that meant was I'd rent a cage at a centralized facility and put my stuff in it. And then they would make sure power stayed to it and all that. And that it won't get flooded or anything else. Okay? Most of that was in Denver, of course. But what infrastructure does is it eliminates the need for me to have computing equipment anywhere. Okay? If I just need a web server to set in, let's say Denver, and service the entire world, well, I can do that from somebody else. They'll provide all the services I need. I decide what runs on it, and I put the software on it and all that. But the infrastructure, the hardware itself, and the operating systems that run on it, operating systems like Windows or something, I rent that part. And then when I'm done, I'm done. Okay. So the easy in and the easy out is one of the major benefits to cloud computing. So how does it all work? Well, these are the 5 elements that it must have, 5 characteristics, that it must have to meet the standard definition of cloud computing. It has to be on demand. It has to be self-service. Okay, I don't have to build up anything. I can just log in and go to work at any time of the day. It needs to be available on broad network access, which means any type of access device. Okay. Could be wireless, could be whatever. Okay. It depends on what you want to pay for. Resource pooling. I thought I misspelled it. Okay. I thought it said polling. And I'm going, what? Resource pooling. What that means is that the provider, the cloud service provider, can buy a bunch of equipment and then use it as a pool to provide services to customers. Okay, and there's a concept within resource pooling called multi-tenancy. And there's a class all by itself. But what it really means is that I can securely run let's say 1,000 customers at a time. And that allows me to pool my resources. I don't have to go out and buy a bunch more. One of the concepts that makes that kind of thing work is called oversubscription. And that's been around since the day of dial-up. And what that means is, well, let me ask you this. When you're on the internet, what do you spend most of your time doing?
Looking stuff up.
Okay, you mean typing?
Oh, you mean at home or at work?
Anywhere.
Waiting.
Waiting, exactly right. Most of your time is spent waiting or reading, but the system is idle. Okay, which allows it, so if you're gonna be in a block of time, if you're a common user, you're gonna use 10% of that time for actually transmitting, for send and receive, okay? So that means, I can sell those other 9 time slots, okay? If I have this piece of time, you're going to use 1/10 of it, I can sell those other 9 slots, and that's called oversubscription.
I think that's what's wrong with CTC Link, by the way.
No, that's called overstupification.
But I used to work at CTC, I shouldn't be knocking on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so rapid elasticity just means that I get resources on demand. I get, the minute I need it, I get it. Okay, and I don't want to go into virtualization, but that's what makes that work. And measured service. I'm going to keep track of what you do to make sure that I'm charging you the right amount, but I'm also gonna try to be predictive on this. Okay, in other words, if I see you approaching thresholds, okay, we'll add the service. Once you approve it, of course, we're not gonna just jump on your bill. So those 5 characteristics interact to create cloud services. Now, if you think about the cloud services that you use, Gmail, Amazon, any others you can think of, Outlook, Microsoft Outlook, email, okay? Email's the biggest one. I mean, that's by far the largest cloud application. But if you use Office Online, LibreOffice, Google Office, lots of free software out there that it works pretty well. Okay. Next time you're using that application, kind of visualize what's going on. Okay, where is that thing running? It's not running on your machine, probably. It's running out in the cloud. And we only call it the cloud is so we don't have to think about it. Right? Okay. So I think we're just about done here. Okay, so the audio wouldn't play. So, hey, you get off my cloud. Some of you were too young to know that song, right? Yeah. That's a Rolling Stone major hit, 1966. That tells you how old they are, yeah. Okay, that's what I had for you today. I did try not to get too very technical with that, but the idea is, what is that thing? And okay, it's really nothing. When you boil it down, it's just a way to get software to you, right?
And so that's what Office 365 on the cloud is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all the applications there. So we'll always have the latest version.
Yeah, exactly
We'll
right.
all, once we all get on it, we'll all always have the latest version of software and blah, blah, blah.
That's, 365, they're gonna rename that, by the way, and I can't think of the new name all of a sudden. It's kind of a stupid name, but it's like Office, it can't be Office Max, that's what I was gonna say. But it's a silly name,
Yeah.
but it's like the next Windows version won't be called Windows. It's because the version they're working on right now, that for the time being is called Petaluma. The browser is your screen, is your desktop. There's no more, I need to open my browser. No, you're open the minute you boot your system, okay? And because everything's kind of moving to the cloud, well, why do you need the op system anymore? All you need is a browser, okay? And there's a browser out there very much like it already. It's called Maxthon, and it's out of Taiwan, but it's a cloud browser. Yeah, so things out there moving rapidly away from us is how I look at that. So yeah, I started with punch cards. Yeah, the Air Force taught me how to key punch. Anyway, that's where I started. Any other questions? Yes?
What do you think of using an external drive to save documents, like at home, for instance?
Oh, I do. Yeah, the reason is because I can detach it. You know, if that increases my security. If you leave it connected to your computer all the time, it's like having just a hard drive inside your computer. But if you shut your computer down and disconnect it to the USB connection, probably, then now that's safe. That can't be. You know, the only truly safe computer is one that's in a closet with no windows that's unplugged, and the door's locked. Other than that, you can't really secure them all that much. Not us, anyway. So
Oh, nobody'd ever figure out my password.
that's what everyone says. Yeah, I saw War Games. Yeah. Do you remember that movie War Games?
Yeah.
I don't
Where
know.
they guess the password one letter at a time? It's called brute force, but yeah, they can do it. They have programs that anybody can download called, the big one's called John the Ripper. And John the Ripper is a password guesser. It's called Cracker, actually. And what it does is it just does one character at a time, looking for a match. And the longer your password is, the longer it would take. Okay? So if you, for example, if you have a 16-digit or character password, it would take them about 18 years to crack that. So they give up long before that.
Oh.
Yeah. But if you have a 6, you notice they're all gone to 8 now. But 6 would take them about 10 minutes. 8 increases it to about an hour. And so from then on, every digit is, you're squaring the previous.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's what I know. So,
About those programs for passwords,
pardon?
programs for
To
passwords.
save your passwords.
Yeah.
Oh, that guess it?
No,
It's one where you keep all your
Oh,
passwords. Yeah.
like locker?
I
Yeah,
don't know what that
password
I
locker.
think it makes a password too.
There are some. The same one that'll use your face as your login, which is on our machines. It sure is down in my part of the world, but it has that feature in it too. Yeah, God, I can't remember the name of it. I can't come up with it. Too many things to remember. Yeah. And as I get older, I remember fewer of them. So.
Do you think those are a good idea, those kind of?
Password lockers? Yeah, because they're not on your computer. They're writing it out in the cloud. Yeah, you can download, there's about 3 or 4 of them. The better one is provided by VeriSign. They're the digital certificate people, security people. They have a password locker that's really good. The one that Windows is not bad though. Yeah, the one that you can get off the store. Yeah, it's not bad. It's pretty good. Unix. If you're really worried about passwords and that kind of stuff, get rid of Windows. Go to Linux. I know that's scary.
What's Linux?
Linux is another type of operating system is what makes your computer work. Okay, otherwise it's just a machine sitting there doing nothing. Okay, so it has to have instructions of what to do. Okay, how to get the keystrokes into where they need to be, and how to get something off the hard drive when you want it, and how to display stuff on the screen. Okay, all that's done by a program that's called an operating system. Okay, Windows is an operating system. Okay, Apollo Spectra is an operating system. Linux is an operating system, and there are about 20 flavors of Linux. Linux is free, by the way. There's Unix, which Linux is a version of. Others on down the road. The big two are Windows and Linux. And Linux you have to be a little more technical to work with it. But once it's installed, it's bulletproof. Can't even crash it. You can only crash one program. You can't crash the whole machine. Yeah.
I kind of figured for my personal use, I don't really need a laptop that does much, so I just got a Chromebook and everything's in the cloud. So that sounds like I made a good decision is what I'm hearing as far as like security goes.
Well, it won't go obsolete as fast, for one thing, because it'll be as current as the cloud, right? The only thing you have to guard against is memory. Because the application developers long ago stopped worrying about how much space they took in your computer. Okay, and in order for a program to run inside your computer, it's loaded into what's called main memory. Okay, and as the programs get bigger, you need more main memory, and so that would be the only threat. But the cloud helps that by doing what's called virtual paging, which means they only give you as much of that program as you need at the time you're doing it. You don't have to bring the whole thing down like you would if it was on your computer. Okay, so yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah, it's called thin client, by the way. That's what that's called. Yeah, fat client's got a hard drive. You know? So, anything else? I'm not using up all my time, right?
No, you're good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ron. As well.
Yeah, this is great.